Russian media report that a Russian cargo ship carrying corn is sinking in the Azov Sea. The vessel, named Pavel Grabovsky, was transporting 3,000 tons of corn and was en route from Rostov to Turkey. However, on February 16th, near the Russian port of Azov in the Rostov region, a breach appeared in the ship's hull, causing it to start sinking. Since the start of the war, Russia has suffered significant losses in both its military and civilian naval fleets due to Ukrainian strikes and sabotage. The sinking of the Moskva, the Black Sea Fleet's flagship, was a major blow, followed by numerous successful attacks on warships, landing craft, and patrol boats using missiles and maritime drones. Ukrainian forces have also targeted naval infrastructure in Crimea, forcing Russia to relocate much of its fleet. Meanwhile, civilian vessels supporting Russian logistics have also been hit, disrupting supply lines and further weakening Moscow's ability to project power in the region. The 110th Separate Mechanized Brigade repelled a 6-hour Russian assault in the Donetsk sector. Russian forces have suffered staggering losses in Donetsk as they continue relentless assaults against well-fortified Ukrainian positions. Waves of poorly trained conscripts and convict soldiers are thrown into battle, often with minimal support, leading to devastating casualty rates. Ukrainian defenders, using drones, artillery, and precision strikes, have turned cities like Avdiivka and Bakhmut into graveyards for Russian troops and equipment. Despite these heavy losses, the Kremlin persists with its costly offensives, sacrificing thousands for minimal territorial gains, further exposing the flaws in Russia's military strategy. The British Prime Minister Keir Starmer will present Donald Trump with a plan to send fewer than 30,000 European troops to Ukraine in an attempt to secure American protection for the deployment. The Prime Minister is expected to detail how European forces could police any ceasefire deal brokered by the U.S. President when the pair meet in Washington next week. But he will urge Mr. Trump to have U.S. fighter jets and missiles on standby in Eastern Europe to respond with lethal force if Russia breaks the terms of any armistice, according to Western officials briefed on the plans. The Anglo-French strategy for a reassurance force was presented to Europe's most powerful leaders at an emergency meeting in Paris earlier this week as they scrambled to respond to Mr. Trump opening peace talks with Vladimir Putin. It was drawn up amid fears that the U.S. president would wash his hands of Ukraine and any ceasefire almost immediately after any deal is concluded. Pete Hegseth, the U.S. Defense Secretary, has said the sole responsibility for any peacekeeping operations in Ukraine would fall on the Europeans and Canada. The Prime Minister has promised to act as a bridge between Washington and Europe as it appears the continent and Kyiv have been frozen out of Mr. Trump's peace efforts. Sir Keir will make the case that it is in the U.S. interest to remain involved in preventing Russia from invading for a third time after the fighting ends. Under the Anglo-French plan, fewer than 30,000 European-led troops will be deployed to Ukrainian cities, ports, and other critical infrastructure sites, such as nuclear power stations, far away from the current front lines. Rather than stationing a much bigger force in the war-torn country, the mission will rely on technical monitoring, including intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance aircraft, drones, and satellites to provide a complete picture of what is going on, a Western official said. The operation would be backed up by enough firepower to monitor and shoot those attacks down, the source added, to reopen Ukraine's airspace and enable commercial flights. Naval patrol vessels would also be sent to the Black Sea to monitor Russian threats to commercial shipping routes. The plan outlined by Western officials falls far short of the 200,000-strong peacekeeping mission demanded by Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine's president, as the possible price for signing a peace deal. But with opposition from Germany, Spain, and Italy to putting boots on the ground, European options for securing Ukraine's future appear limited. Leaving the talks in Paris, Sir Keir said such an operation would require a U.S. backstop to deter Russia from attacking again. Ukraine's future size depends on how many people are ready to defend it. Valery Zaluzhny, the former commander-in-chief of the armed forces, outlined 4 key conditions for victory: a prepared mobilization reserve for a prolonged war, consistent international support, competent military leadership, and effective management of the entire process.
Let's talk about Ukraine first, shall we? So, I am somehow sure that the size of Ukraine will depend entirely on how many people are ready to defend it. So if we come again directly to the conduct of the war now, the very war now, well, we need to be be cautious, very cautious. Why? Because the armed forces of Ukraine should not, so to speak, be the armed forces of Ukraine, and the Ukrainian state should stand apart from them. The main thing for the armed forces of Ukraine is the number of prepared mobilization resources and the number of people ready in case, for some reason, to take up arms, just like it was in 2022, and position for its respective defense. So the situation can be different. Situations are possible. Perhaps now calculations can be carried out, and we will understand that even half is enough of what is. I'm not ready to talk about it, but it needs to be calculated. And the main thing is to have it here in the territory of Ukraine. The number of prepared mobilization resources, specifically for the long-term war that we see now, therefore, it will all depend on the specific situation we ultimately reach in order to respond to this or that threat. But once again, I want to tell you that from the state's point of view, I would focus more on Ukraine directly as a future mobilization resource and its readiness for defense. Not the number that might be directly in the armed forces of Ukraine, which, by the way, will depend on many factors.
U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz says the era of endless war of attrition is over, and Ukraine must see opportunities in granting access to its resources. U.S. taxpayers deserve reimbursement. Instead, we hear escalation rhetoric and resistance, which President Trump won't tolerate.
The era of an endless grinding war with death and destruction on all sides, costing hundreds of billions and costing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives. That era is over. You know, we look at the type of aid the Europeans are providing, and it's often in the form of loans. It's being repaid with the interest on seized Russian assets. We believe the American taxpayer deserves to recoup much of their investment. All of that's an opportunity for Ukraine. They need to see that for what it is. And instead, we had this kind of escalating rhetoric and pushback, and the president's not going to tolerate it. I don't think anyone should be really, criticizing the president for trying to drive this to a diplomatic solution. And what he said yesterday and today is, why hasn't President Zelensky tried to end this war for the betterment of his country? And we have to ask ourselves, is Ukraine's position improving or not on the battlefield?
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.